wonder what I see in your future? Possibility.
God damn, what you do to me. Hey, let's bring on the man responsible for Doctor Strange. You wouldn't have him if you didn't have the writer C. Robert Cargill. Cargill, give everybody give Cargill a hand right here. Hey, first of all, man, last time you were here, we were talking about, well, we've had you on several times to talk about Sinister. Well, we talked about Sinister one time with you when that was out. Then we had you on for Sinister 2, and now congratulations on getting that Marvel money. You got Doctor Strange right here. How does it feel being in the Marvel family?
Oh, dude, it's awesome. Dude, it's everything you think it is. It's and everything you wish it was.
Bitches, money.
No, it's a bunch of cool ass nerds hanging out doing cool nerd shit and making cool movies. Like it's that everybody who works at Marvel, they're big comic fans. They know their stuff. They're all excited and cool to work with. Kevin Feige's a really super awesome, fun guy to hang out with and talk nerd stuff with. Like everybody's just great. And since everyone's so excited about Marvel stuff right now, it's everyone takes it seriously, and it's really a really great family. Like there's a reason why people get in there and they want to keep doing it over and over again. When they find people they like, they just let them go because they're like, okay, you get this, go, let's do it. And they're constantly trying to evolve the comic book movie rather than going, this is what works, we're doing this. They're like, what haven't we done yet? Like, what crazy stuff can we do?
That's what we saw in the Doctor Strange trailer. I mean, something they've been doing the whole time, but like looking at Doctor Strange, I'm like, yeah, they always take a superhero movie and go like, yeah, but it's also this kind of movie as well.
Yeah, well, this teaser is the definition of a teaser. Like you are only getting like a small taste of just how crazy this movie gets. We have only just the slightest hints of magic in there. There's major characters you don't even glimpse in that trailer. There's so much stuff going on that this thing is just, it's nutty. Like the stuff they let us do, just I can't believe they let us do it. Like it would just, and I would be in meetings where Kevin Feige and like our other producers like Stephen Broussard would be, how can we make this crazier? And I was like, all right, let's play around. And it's a hell of an experience.
So here's the big thing that people are talking about out there. They're talking about how, especially with DC and Marvel, the whole thing is Marvel, they come in, and the reason why they're so successful is because they just control everybody. That's why you had Edgar Wright lead, because they wouldn't let him be him. Over at DC, at least they let them do what they wanted to, what they want to do, whether you like the movies or not. Do you find that experience to be not true?
I do find that experience to be not true. That's not what happens. It's not. I mean, Marvel does have a lot of oversight, but Marvel's oversight isn't, you're going to do this, this, and this, and write your name on the front. It's very much, that's not good enough. How can we make that better? Marvel has a thing that they borrowed, that they got from Walt Disney. It's called plussing, and they're kind of behind the scenes mantra is always be plussing. This can always be better. How can we make this scene funnier? How can we make this scene more emotional? How can we make this transition smoother? Like they'll look at it and go, this is really good, but it can always be better. And they're always looking at it, wanting it to be better, and not going, I know how to make it better. They're asking you, the creatives, how can it be better? How do you think it can be better? Can you give us a number of different takes on this scene that would give us different ways we can go, and play around until you get it to the point where they then go, okay, we don't think we can make this any better. We think messing with this anymore is going to mess with you.
Yeah.
The thing that you're hearing from people is, sometimes, every artist has bullshit. And I mean, it's just a thing, whether you're a novelist, whether you're a screenwriter, whether you're a film critic, whether you're successful at all three. Was kidding. Jesus. That joke landed dead. Notice I didn't say comedian. But whether, no matter what you're doing, you need to have people in your life who call you on your bullshit and go, dude, that's just not as funny as you thought it was. This could be better. This could be this. And there are certain people in the industry that get to that point and go, no, I've been successful. I don't need that anymore. And they stop trusting advice from other people who are talented. And when you're dealing with someone like Kevin Feige, who is the LeBron James of the movie industry right now, and he says, I think this can be better, you don't go, no, this is as good as it gets. I'm not rewriting it. I'm not touching it. Screw you. And when they say, well, we're just going to have somebody else rewrite it, and you walk off, well, that's what's going to happen. They've got a level, they've got a line of demarcation that they do not want to go below. They do not want to make films that disappoint the audience, and so they're just not. They fight to make sure it doesn't happen. So yeah, there's a lot of, they have a history of creatives who are like, no, I want this to happen. This needs to be this way, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong.
I'm glad, first of all, that you kept saying his name, because I was wondering, how the fuck do you say this guy's name? I was gonna say Kevin Feige. It's Kevin Feige. They're okay.
Yeah, you pronounced it like it was yogurt.
Yeah, Feige. Kevin Feige. So how much interaction do you have? And for those who don't know, I mean, I'm sure you can elaborate more on this than I can, but Kevin Feige, Feige. Feige, thank you. Wow,
he only mentioned it like 17 times.
I'm so used to saying it my way. Right. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige, as many know right now, is pretty much the head of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's calling the shots. He's
not pretty much. He's the head of the Marvel Cinematic. He is all 7 heads of the Hydra, my man.
He is road mapping everything that you see that's going on with that cinematic universe, which is why people say it has such a good track record. How much experience do you have with him?
Quite a bit. We did a lot of story meetings over the time that I was working on it. He was on set often. And spent, he and I would, typically what would happen is we'd run into each other and he'd be like, hey, I want to do a meeting later. And I'd be like, okay. And then finally, when he can fit me into his schedule, we then sit for 4 hours and bullshit about movies and occasionally talk about the movie. And we would have these really long note sessions, but we got along really well.
Nice.
Now, so he's good people. I like him a lot.
Originally, you submitted a proposal for Doctor Strange and they picked somebody else. How did it come back to you?
Well, that was all Scott. Like, the thing is they wanted to work with us.
You're talking about Scott
Derrickson, my co-writer and the director of Doctor Strange. Yeah, they essentially what happened was they had a scheduling conflict where they needed to have this movie out by July of this year. That was where it was scheduled into the schedule, and they just said this director isn't going to have time to write and direct this movie. Let's hire another writer and get him working on pre-production, and then they'll work on the script and they'll get it going, and then when getting Benedict signed, his schedule forced it to bump back, and then it was bumped back to November. And then when it came time to do some more work on the script, they said, Scott, what do you want to do? And Scott's like, well, I want to bring in Cargill. Like, I want to work with Cargill on this. And so they brought me in, and I've been on ever since. So that was last January that I started actually working on this. And so I've been working on it until just very recently.
Nice. And how do you feel? What is it about the movie? Because, I don't know myself how many people know Doctor Strange. I don't know if he's up there, because I know you guys know him.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he's up there with Spider-Man and Thor, where everybody knows that name. So what is it that is going to push this character forward for the mainstream people that don't know who this character is? And being that this is so trippy of a film and so trippy of a property, how are you going to also make that more appealing to a mainstream audience?
Well, I mean, the key is, the main thing about Doctor Strange is that he's got such a great story. He's got such a great arc. As Martin and I could probably sit here and do 3 hours of just everything awesome about Doctor Strange. He's just such a cool character. But essentially, it's got a little something for everybody in the way that Doctor Strange has a really great character arc and is very much about characters, but it's a superhero movie, but it's also a fantasy film. Like, so if you're like, man, I don't want to watch people fly around and shoot lasers at each other and just watch robots hit each other, I want to watch a fantasy film. I want something like Harry Potter. I want something like Lord of the Rings. You get a whole taste of that with Doctor Strange, because it's all it's a very magical fantasy universe, but at the same time, it plays by a bunch of the superhero tropes that people enjoy.
What are those superhero tropes that you're talking about?
Well, I mean, this is the a guy rising to heroism. He's Doctor Strange starts as a very selfish, vain guy who's he's one of the most successful neurosurgeons in the world. He's good looking. He has no problem getting women. He's wealthy. He's very full of himself. He is the Corey Coleman of superheroes.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds familiar, man. Except for the wealthy part.
Except for the wealthy and talented part. But
That too, yeah.
So he then he gets his hands shattered in a car accident, and everything goes away, and he loses everything, and he becomes desperate, and so he'll try anything, and then he falls in with magic. And I don't want to spoil too much more about that. What I can talk to about is what happens in the comics. As he goes to a place in Tibet, he the Ancient One teaches him magic. He becomes a sorcerer. Then later he becomes the Sorcerer Supreme, and he is the guy who stands between all of the threats of the magical cosmos and our world. And so he's right there, battling off all the terrible things of the night. And he's always been a really interesting character with fascinating villains, and the arcs are so big, and they're very existential, and it's just a very thoughtful, interesting series of stories that are just fascinating and that I've loved since I was a kid.
I feel like this movie would have been a harder sell back in the day prior to us having, those series of Harry Potter movies where everybody has been indoctrinated to magic. So it's not that far fetched.
Thor being there already kind of helped too.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing is that's one of the smart things about Feige is that he's setting things up and bringing things into where, he says, oh, we're going to do Doctor Strange now. And most everybody says, what the hell is Doctor Strange? And they go, it's got the Marvel logo in front of it. And they're like, well, we'll see it. We'll give it a shot. And it's got Benedict Cumberbatch. Oh, really? Now it's one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Yeah. Oh, and we added Chiwetel Ejiofor and Tilda Swinton and Mads Mikkelsen. And people are like, oh my God, I have to see this movie now. I have no idea what it's about, but I can't wait to see it because you start trusting, the model, and you start trusting the brand. You start trusting the universe, and hopefully we deliver on that.
Well, you know what, man? Cool thing about you being here live and having people here in the studio. Some people came to see you. I think some people want to ask you some questions, and especially this man right here. This is Sam. Sam.
Hi, Sam.
We met before.
I'm sure we have,
Yes.
but he introduced us anyway, so fuck it. I'm saying hi back.
There we go. There we go. But so as a writer on this new project, one of the biggest things, I guess, for previous Marvel movies such as Guardians of the Galaxy, nobody knew who they were. Now, I follow Marvel.
Okay, say nobody, like keep it to that side of the room.
Right.
Over here
So
are two motherfuckers who know exactly who they are and know who's missing from the lineup and what they may have gotten wrong about certain characters, Drax in name only.
Nobody in the general American audience in full scope of it. So they had to overcome the most general populace not knowing who those people were. How did you write, or what did you include that's going to get people on board with this character and with Doctor Strange? Like, how are you going to introduce him? In what ways do you think that best kind of
Well, I think we're seeing it
him?
right now. I mean, one of the things was we are tackling the origin story because the origin story for Doctor Strange is so awesome that Christopher Nolan ripped half of it off for Batman Begins.
I was kept watching the one. This seems really familiar to me.
Yeah. No. In fact, that's one of the things that I've been really happy about seeing online is you see these guys in threads who are just like, man, this is just a rip off of Batman Begins, and then actual comic nerds come in and go, Batman Begins fucking ripped off Doctor Strange, right? Batman didn't go to Tibet and learn magic. Like that's not how that story happened. So yeah, no, I mean it's we're adding the Marvel formula to Doctor Strange and then being allowed to play with the weird stuff. I mean, they're not afraid of the weird stuff. They've kept us grounded in that there were some things, especially our early pitch that we brought in, where they were like, we didn't know this wasn't what we wanted for the first movie, but this proves that the audiences aren't ready for it. And they're like, keep this in mind if we if we make a second or third film with you, because this is great, we love this, but you can't start here. Like that's convinced us.
So you're gonna be able to put in all these crazy images like we see.
Oh, that's
here.
right. In this film, yeah, you haven't even seen the batshit crazy stuff.
So
yet.
there's going to be a lot more extravagance in terms of the visual effects, more than what we've even seen.
Like when I say that's a teaser, like that, literally. I mean, I was really proud of this teaser because I didn't get to see it. I watched it live on Kimmel with everybody else. Like Marvel's really, like, had I been in LA, I could have gone into one of their screening rooms and watched it, but they won't put it on any of their servers for people out of town because that's how this shit leaks. So I was watching live and I had no idea what the trailer was going to be, and so I watched the teaser and I was just so happy because it's all about setting up the myth of Doctor Strange. Like anybody who watches that trailer goes, oh, I think I know the basic direction the story's going, but has no idea how crazy it's going to get. This movie, we've got some really bonkers stuff in here in the best way, like in the way that Doctor Strange is bonkers. Like those of us who are, Doctor Strange fans for a long time before this project, I mean, you can't be a Doctor Strange fan without ever uttering the word Ditko. Like at some point, you're just going to go the Ditko stuff. Yeah. This era is cool, and yeah, when it got crazy in the '80s with people like Rintra, that some of that stuff's fun. But the Ditko stuff's amazing, and the Ditko stuff is very much what influenced the design department on this.
All right. I want to get some people here who want to ask you questions. Brandon McMurray says, I really enjoyed the Doctor Strange trailer. I'm very excited because of how little it resembles any of the other Marvel films. Was there any pressure from Marvel during the writing or filming to not make it too strange or add in elements to connect it to the other movies? It seems like if there was any character that would leave alone, that they would leave alone and not look over the shoulder of, it would be the director of Doctor Strange. Also, Corey, if you have time, could you guys discuss Neon Demon and Birth of a Nation trailer? You know what? We're going to do that next week. We have shows for that. We're not going to do that today because today is packed, as you can see. But did you get that? You got that right?
Yeah. No. In fact, the one thing Marvel really wanted to do with this one is to let this movie kind of exist on its own. They're aware that several of their movies are starting to feel cluttered. People are joking about the fact that these movies are essentially 2-hour-long commercials for the next 2-hour-long commercial,
right?
And that's not what they want to be. And so there was no pressure about, hey, can you add in this character? Can you tie this into this event? They just what they wanted. The one pressure there was is, no, we already played around with that idea in this movie and we don't like repeating ourselves, so let's not do that. And no, we don't want this. We want to do something fresh instead of it feeling like this character. And so the big pressure was to do something different and fresh. And the fact that this trailer looks unlike everything else is what they would really like Phase 3 and Phase 4 to be. They really want these movies,
that's encouraging,
to run the gamut of looks and feels. They don't want that one Marvel movie look and feel. I mean, there's what the Avengers movies will look and feel like, because those are Avengers movies, but they want all these other characters to kind of exist in their own worlds, the same way the comics exist as the comics.
Sure.
That's how they look at it.
Yeah.
Reading a Daredevil comic was very different than reading a Doctor Strange comic, which is very different than reading X-Men, which was very different than reading Excalibur or X-Force.
Well, that's what I've always said. I was like, man, you know what? It's not the characters that they introduce, it's the phases that they are actually able to bring into this universe that kind of keeps it fresh, too. I got a question here. Now, you're going to think this is me. It is not me. This is Van Hong Tran, who brought the issue up of the Ancient One. He says, he's like, bruh, got to bring up the Ancient One casting. Now, Van Hong Tran is an Asian dude living in the Netherlands, not too thrilled about the casting of a Caucasian woman as the Ancient One. Tilda Swinton is playing her, and he wants to know he goes on to say, not your opinion, but your argument on that.
Well, I mean, the thing with the Ancient One is it is Marvel's Kobayashi Maru. Like, there is no other character in Marvel history that is such a cultural landmine that is absolutely unwinnable. Like, I've been reading a bunch of people talking about it, and the really frustrating thing about it this week is most of the people who have thoughts on it haven't thought it all the way through, and they go, well, why didn't they just do this? And it's like, I could tell you why. Like, I could tell you why every single decision that involves the Ancient One is a bad one. And just like the Kobayashi Maru, it all comes down onto which way you're willing to lose. the Ancient One was a racist stereotype who comes from a region of the world that is in very weird political place. He originates from Tibet. So if you acknowledge that Tibet is a place and that he's Tibetan, you risk alienating 1 billion people who think that that's bullshit, and risk the Chinese government going, hey, one of the biggest film watching countries in the world, we're not going to show your movie because you decided to get political. If we decide to go the other way and cater to China in particular and have him be in Tibet.
And that's the Ancient One right there.
That's the Ancient One right there. Yeah, no, that's a more modern, less racist interpretation.
And it's still like a Fu, and
One.
we're looking at people are listening. We're looking at a character who has the Fu Manchu gray beard. He's the evil Asian guy. So.
That's the exact thing I thought. It's like that's more modern and less racist than the Ancient One originally looked.
Yeah, no, that's the more 80s into the 90s version of the Ancient One. And you've got there is no, like, I've seen a lot of people, the thing that makes me pull my hair out is, some people are like, well, why not cast Michelle Yeoh? Like, I'm like, well, first of all, Michelle Yeoh is awesome. I would love to make a film with Michelle Yeoh. If you are telling me that you think it's a good idea to cast a Chinese actress as a Tibetan character, you are out of your damn fool mind and have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. Oh, what? Oh, well, she could be Asian. Oh, she should be Japanese. She should be Indian. Like, really? The levels of cultural sensitivity around this thing is everybody's staking out their one particular place and not realizing that every single thing here is a losing proposition. We could pretend the Ancient One doesn't exist, and then we're just eradicating one of the main characters from the story to just not deal with race. So what Scott decided to do, and this happened before I came on board, so I wasn't part of this decision at all, although there's part of me that wishes I was he was just like, there's no real way to win this. So let's use this as an opportunity to cast an amazing actress in a male role. And sure enough, there's not a lot of talk about, oh man, they took away the job from a guy and gave it to a woman. Everybody kind of pats us on the back for that and then decides to scold us for her not being Tibetan. And that's just the way it's going to go. We knew that the social justice warriors would be angry either way. If we just kind of used a Tibetan actor and it was still an Ancient One, but it was much less racist, or hopefully not racist at all, people would still be like, well, that's the hope, But people would still be, oh, it's another white guy goes to the Orient and adopts their ways and then comes back and is the great white hero story. It's Avatar all over again. It's The Last Samurai all over again. So you're gonna get dinged on that. If you switch it to a Tibetan woman, again, you've got a lot of problems with just the politics of the region. If you choose any other Asian race, any other ethnicity, you're still disrespecting the original ethnicity of the race. So what Scott just decided to do was, let's go with an actor who everyone loves, and let's make one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe a woman. And at the same time, that also allowed us to do a lot of other gender bending and playing around with the film. I think when people see what you've seen in this teaser trailer, as I keep saying, it's totally a teaser. Like, you don't see Wong yet. You don't. Right. You barely see anything of Chiwetel. You barely see anything of Mads Mikkelsen. It's very much about Stephen Strange's arc. But when you start to see this film, you'll see that what we were able to do with Kamar-Taj is we made one of the most multicultural films most people have seen in years. Like, this film is, I'm not certain if there's a single major race that isn't represented with a speaking role in this film. It allowed us to bring in a lot of, as small characters to build upon later, a lot of characters from this Doctor Strange universe who come from all over the world. We were able to play with a lot of things, and it gave us a lot to work with. But the real thing was, it was a landmine. The social justice warriors were going to get mad at us for something this week. They were just going to do it. There was no way to avoid it. So the hill Scott decided to die on was the one of feminism, and to give a really great meaty role to an actress as amazing as Tilda Swinton.
All right. Well, you just told all Van Hung, fuck off. Yeah, man. I didn't say that.
And the thing is and this needs to be said, is no disrespect to anyone except the idiots out there who are going, this is the only way to do it. But everyone has a right to be upset because this is the fact that this even exists, the fact that there's a problem, that Marvel has a character like that has fallen into a weird place. Like the only way this character could be more awkward is if he had been made back in the 30s, like around the Superman time, and instead of going to the Orient, he went to Palestine and learned from a Palestinian master. And so now we had to, in order to be factually correct with the comic book, he would have to go into Palestine. Like that's the only way this could be any uglier than this one is now. It is a really, really ugly piece of history that, you know, we wish there was an easy solution to, and there wasn't one.
Well, that's kind of a problem you're going to have with a lot of these things, just because all these characters were created back in the early 60s.
By a bunch of white men.
Yeah, exactly. Where, you know, a lot of the political mores that we have now, you know, they didn't exist then. They just did whatever they want. It'd be worse. Yeah, you're right. Turn of century's time, like John Carter and Tarzan, so much worse then. But even going back to the 60s, there's like, yeah, this is what it was, and to do these origins, you have to go back to the 60s, and man, there's so much shit to untangle that sometimes you just
even
can't
in
do
the
it.
70s and 80s, I mean, look at what happened with Dazzler. Dazzler was supposed to be based on
that nerd shit. I can't
Well, no, but Dazzler was supposed to be based on Diana Ross, and she was going to be a black superhero X-Men who was also a disco star on roller skates, and they were like, "Can you make her white?" And so they were like, well, she's kind of Diana Ross, and they're like, no, we've got this deal.
Diana Ross on roller skates sounds badass.
No, and when you see the original artwork, you're like, that's fucking badass.
Right.
Like this is cool as hell. But they were in with this other tie-in deal, and they were like, we want to be able to market this to other people, and so the character ended up white. But this has been going on for a long time, and it's really hard to untangle. But the dealing with the Ancient One the way we did gave us a lot of leeway to do a lot of other stuff.
I got a question here.
Great.
This is from.